You're now watching Sports Bettor's Paradise on the BetRivers Network.
All right, Jimmy Ott along with Paul Stone. It's our weekly college basketball handicapping approach, and we throw in a few sides as well. Paul, how you doing today?
Doing well. Had a lot of rain in my part of the country in East Texas, like I'm sure you did in Louisiana and other parts of the South. But we're drying out now and looking forward to some great college basketball tonight and the rest of the week.
Couple of underdogs at home. Unranked teams at home. Cash tickets favored over ranked teams last night. Alabama over Auburn. That was my best bet here on the BetRivers Network. And Nevada in need of a conference win. Started out 2-0, then 0-3. And they roll over Colorado State, easily covering the 4.5. And we had the court rush fade. First time Tulane had beaten a ranked team since Hot Rod Williams. Remember him? Hope you didn't have the Wave minus the 10 against Southern Miss in a game that fell 4 way back then, Paul. But anyway, they followed it up with a straight-up loss at Texas San Antonio. Texas San Antonio, two really strong showings at home. Should have beaten Florida Atlantic, lost in overtime, but easily covered, and then won outright as a 6-point dog. As we talk about some of these smaller conferences, Paul, we want to get today into your approach. And what you like to do is you have your power ratings, and they are fluid with wins and covers or lack thereof. They move up or down, and injuries as well. But with 362 teams in Division I, 32 conferences, it's impossible to draw up an expertise in all of them. So tell us how you streamline your conferences, and just talk about why you do it and exactly which ones do you concentrate on.
Yeah, I mean, with 362 teams, 32 conferences, Jimmy, an individual handicapper cannot possibly adequately and thoroughly handicap that many teams and leagues. So rather than be a jack of all sports and a master of none, I think it's almost a no-brainer, a slam dunk, if you will, to concentrate on a few select leagues. And how many you focus on, I think, really depends on the amount of time that you have. You might focus on 2 or 3 leagues, maybe 4, maybe even 5. I think, first of all, it's probably smart to focus some of your attention on at least a couple of the so-called Power 5 leagues. The larger leagues, which garner the most media coverage, information, easier to find on those leagues. And then perhaps add in 1 or 2 of the smaller regional leagues in your part of the country. For me, I live in Texas, so one natural is the Western Athletic Conference. It's an 11-team league. 5 of those teams reside here in Texas. As I was telling you off air before we start, I'm actually going to the Grand Canyon at Stephen F. Austin State University game tonight, Thursday, January 25th, which is a big game in that league. So always exciting to be able to go to a college basketball game. But that's a fun league to follow. 5 teams here in my backyard in Texas. So that's one of the leagues that I follow. Also, the 10-team Southland Conference is one of the smaller leagues that I follow, a league whose teams are split evenly among Texas and Louisiana. 5 of those teams in Texas, 5 in Louisiana, with McNeese State there in Lake Charles, Louisiana, being the class of the league thus far. I'm sure you did, and probably many of the listeners watched that McNeese State victory over at Texas A&M Corpus Christi a couple of nights ago. Not a Picasso, but a really exciting finish there. So those are the kind of the way I approach it. I also like the Mountain West Conference. It's a league I've historically handicapped. Hadn't had a great deal of success in the NCAA tournament, but man, this is a great league this year. Really enjoyable to watch. San Diego State advanced to the national championship game last year. You got 5 other teams: Nevada, Colorado State, Utah State, New Mexico, and Boise State. They're not all 6 going to make the tournament, but right now they are all 6 in the net top 55. So there'll be some attrition, and maybe 5 could get in from that league, a league that sometimes had 2 or 3 in the past. Also like the Pac-12 conference. I just enjoy watching it. And I think that's important to note. It needs to be somewhat, the object is always to win and be successful, but it needs to be somewhat at least a labor of love. You have to enjoy the conference. You have to enjoy watching it. You have to be able to get information regarding that conference. And also, you need to keep historical data. You need to know how you have done in these leagues historically, be able to access that information, and be able to see, am I really winning? Am I losing? Am I breaking even? And perhaps refocus your efforts if indeed you're not having success in the leagues that you are focusing on.
All right. Any specific situations in the conferences that you're looking at coming up this Sunday in some of those leagues? I know, and I also, you talked about McNeese State. They kind of caught the world by surprise. Will Wade, he was given a seven-figure dollar NIL budget to work with. That was part of the deal, kind of similar to Texas, former Texas Tech and Texas coach Chris Beard at Ole Miss. He got north of $3 million annual NIL budget to get it done. Now they are looking to be a little bit of a fraud right now as they get into conference play. They did take their chance in smash Arkansas. Arkansas, we talked about that team. It was just way below what they've been the past few years. UCLA, however, has rebounded with 3 straight covers. But any games of note coming this weekend that catch your attention in those leagues that you concentrate on?
You as you were asking that, I'm just kind of looking here. I've started certainly looking at Saturday's card. I'll just say, in general, as I'm looking here, the teams like you mentioned, Texas San Antonio, a team that really, they had not played basketball at all, but you have to take note now. And those are the types of teams that, I think the line maker is a little bit slow perhaps to adjust, and the astute, discerning handicapper can maybe take advantage of some spots. A team in the Southland Conference that doesn't have a good record, that teams probably don't get up for as much, Southeastern Louisiana. Yeah. They're covering some point spreads as an underdog. So I see some value there. We've got Grand Canyon going to Texas Arlington on Saturday, 2 days after playing Stephen F. Austin tonight, Thursday, January 25th. I'm projecting that to be about 5 points. Texas Arlington's a team that I might look at as a home dog, getting 5 or more there. So that's one game just off the top of my head that sticks out. Just looking here.
While you do that, Paul, I do I'm interested to watch South Carolina follow up that almost perfect basketball game that they played. Now they are a team that's interesting because they have a weak non-conference schedule, so their NET is kind of on the outside of the bubble right now, but they'll have more than enough chances of quad 1 and quad 2 in the SEC to get it up. But they are, when everybody's playing pace and space, they kind of a rugged, slower tempo team, and they won that battle on this week against Kentucky. Kentucky came in the highest scoring team in the country out of 362 teams, and they held them to basically 30 points below their average. So really reduced the amount of three-pointers. I think 14 three-pointers is what all they got off for the entire 40 minutes. I'm interested to see against a winless Missouri team that comes in. So Missouri has played some teams tough and some not so tough. They covered easily against College Station against A&M. They got their doors blown off at home in Florida last Saturday. But how can South Carolina possibly be emotionally amped up to play against Missouri that comes in? We see this a lot in college football as well. So that's a spot. But also wanted to talk to people today about football, like buy that 3, buy it to 7. Well, the odds makers have caught up with that. They charge you a lot more juice than just a little extra 10 cents to buy it onto 3 or on or off a 3 or on or off a 7. But point spreads as we get into late January here, the lines are getting tighter and tighter, and only in college basketball, not in the NBA. But lines that are 6 or under, I like to take when it's on a half. For instance, Miami Syracuse is 3.5. It fell 3. You buy that extra 10 cents. Some books, some sports books, mobile sports books, do not allow you, like BetRivers does, to buy it onto the half all the time. Some do sometimes. Some don't do it at all. Some charge you 15 cents juice instead of 10 cents juice. If other books aren't doing it, it's usually something you want to consider if a place like BetRivers is doing it. Every single one of their games has a little sliding scale, football, basketball, and you can buy it. The reason I buy it from a half to a whole is because the obvious, the juice. The difference between a loss and a push is 10% more than a win and a push. So I'm trying to extend this out a little bit. And you basically got to hit it 1 out of every 20 times for it to pay for itself. But Miami-Syracuse, this was on Saturday. It was 3.5. It fell 3. Texas-Baylor, even though Baylor hit that 3, that unbelievable 3 against your alma mater, Texas, that was 2.5. It fell 2. Creighton-Seton Hall was 2.5. It fell 3. Sunday, Michigan State-Maryland was 1.5. It fell 2. And then Tuesday night, Wisconsin-Minnesota was 2.5, and it fell 2. Just something you want to consider because these lines are really tight at this time of the season, and it's a personal philosophy. Some people don't do it. Normally, I'm not a guy that wants to look to add juice. I'll look for an alternative line to try to put the juice in my favor in a spot that I like, but it is something that you may want to consider, and it more than paid for itself the past 4 or 5 days or so. Paul, is that something you do in any spots and situations?
Yeah, I do. I don't do it, just as a blanket approach. That's not. I think you have to be judicious in it. I think you have to pick your spots as you do. For me personally, if the line's 1.5, 2, or 2.5, say it's standard -110 juice market wide, then I might buy the half point up to maybe about -116 vigorish. I think if you get any higher than that, at some point the juice becomes cost prohibitive. But if you find a favorable situation, which is trying to attract players, like BetRivers is using that, obviously as a offering betting opportunity that many books or most books don't offer. So if you find the right spot like BetRivers in this case, I think it's more prudent to have that as part of your arsenal. But I do it at the lower point spreads, and like you said, this time of the year, especially in the Power 5, Power 6 leagues, the numbers are so tight. We have 20, 25 games, whatever, 20 games or so of data points of games that these teams have played. So we have more information. The numbers are tight. The games are oftentimes coming close to the number. And like you said, if you can turn a loss into a push or a push into a win, you don't have to do that very many times to make that a good part of your betting arsenal, your toolbox.
Yeah, it'll take some real some strong intestinal fortitude to back the Missouri Tigers around these days, but I think I'm going to have a big number on them. And speaking of the SEC, Kentucky after a loss, we'll see how they respond. Arkansas, boy, they have just that is a rough unit these days. 3 straight Sweet 16s in this one. Any that we missed before we sound off, Paul?
No, I just think, like we were talking about, and you brought up the Texas San Antonio and southeastern Louisiana. Look for those teams that are, competing. Maybe not the record doesn't look that nice. You kind of have to hold your nose when you bet them. And I agree with you on the spot. The South Carolina Missouri game. Missouri was very competitive at Texas A&M. Had the game close for a while. They don't have much success, but like you, a victory by South Carolina that was that convincing, where they played at such a high level and beat the true blue blood of the sport, Kentucky. As we like to say sometime in handicapping, what goes up must come down. And in a long college basketball schedule, there are going to be peaks and valleys. And I think this is a good opportunity to take Missouri plus the points. And I think, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, that it might be about 9 points. But, Missouri, I think, is worth a look there just based on the spot for South Carolina.
Again, I only do about look to buy the half. Now I'll do it catching or laying, but point spreads are 6 or less. Those are the ones that are a little bit tighter. So, Paul will only even consider them at this stage of the season and even lower than that. But we've, streamlined your power ratings. Buying a half or not, looking for, looking for letdown spots, the hangover spots, and gravity today. What comes up must go down. We've covered it all, Paul, on this day this week. Every week we do it, and we're trying to find you angles and help your handicapping approach in college basketball. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott here in the Sports Bettor's Paradise on the BetRivers Network.